Hello, CMXers, and welcome to the second annual CMX Winter Soiree, the event about community-led events. We are here to celebrate the power of community and the power of community-led. Today, you are going to hear from experts in the industry who are building sustainable event programming for their communities. So, let's begin. In 2020, the event world experienced an unanticipated disruption in events due to COVID-19. However, there was another disruption that called on the event industry to look within itself and acknowledge its underrepresentation of Black professionals who contributed their time, expertise, and money to this billion-dollar industry. In this session, we will learn the importance of representation and how community can influence and impact change. Please get your emoji typing fingers ready and join me in welcoming to the stage, Keneisha Williams.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keneisha, and I'm super excited to be here. Today, I want to discuss with you the power of representation and your role to making that happen. Now, I want to discuss why it matters in your business, our teams, our communities. But before I get into that, I really want to encourage you to listen to this presentation, with an open mind, question your intentions, be curious, seek answers, and also make a promise to yourself and to your business that you're going to take the leaps towards action, towards change in 2020 when it comes to representation, being more inclusive within the communities and the events that we are building. Now, most of my presentation does focus on enforcing greater representation of Black professionals because this is a topic that does not get discussed enough. In an article that I produced a year ago for Event MB, there was a stat that mentioned 35 to 40% of events did not have Black speakers in their panels in 2020. And when I see numbers like this, it says, okay, yeah, there's a problem. And more people need to be educated on this. The narrative needs to change. We need to understand the stories. We need to understand the impact and how representation can truly be effective and see its power and its importance in, again, making change in the communities and the events that we're leading. So a little bit about me before we get into anything here. So give me 1 second. So my name is Keneisha, as I said. I'm born and raised in Toronto. Prior to events, I dabbled in PR, hosted events. I founded a women's focused empowerment platform many years ago. And that's really where my passion for events kind of reignited. I feel like events have always played a role in my life. I've always it's somehow been a center of my life in some weird way. I've been doing it professionally for 10 years. I am also the founder of the Black in Events Network, which is an initiative to truly amplify and give more visibility to Black professionals in the events industry because we are, again, super underrepresented. And it's my goal to truly just help, our community members thrive, be more recognized, and create change in the events industry. So those are some of my goals that I can share with you right now. But I am super excited to be here with CMX. It's, a thrill always. I admire the platform and everything that is being done for community professionals. So when I speak about representation, I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to give you some examples. But the first thing that I want to do for you is really truly just define clearly what is representation, because I feel like it's oftentimes there's like this confusion around it for some reason. So I'm going to just kind of clearly define that for you. And in the Merriam-Webster definition of it is that representation is the action of speaking or acting on behalf of someone or the state of being so represented. It's a thing, especially a picture or a model that depicts the likeness or reproduction of someone or something. And when we talk about representation, I want to share a few examples of how examples of representation, but how it can be powerful, and how it can make a difference in how we see ourselves and even how it can impact our businesses and the world at large. Okay, so a quick story. Can I share a story with you? Okay, perfect. So a quick story. I was reading the book Humans, and if you don't follow Humans on Instagram, you should. They just have such inspirational stories, but that's beyond the point. I was reading the book Humans, and there was a story that really truly stuck out and resonated with me. It was about this young boy who moved with his family from the Philippines to Hong Kong, and immediately he felt super isolated because it was a different city, it was a different place. The kids at school were teasing him about like his weight. You know, it wasn't home, you know, and he felt kind of ostracized. And immediately, you know, one day he was watching a sumo wrestling fight on television, and he became inspired when he saw a fighter who was representing the country he was now living in. But that fighter was not from that country. He was actually from the Philippines, where this child was from. And he felt this sense of connection. He saw himself in that wrestler, and it inspired him to get into that sport. Now, you fast track now, and he is like one of the top rated wrestlers in the country. He's formed this sense of connection with the country. And you know, representation truly has the power to do that. When we can see ourselves or models in others, it gives us a sense of like I have a place in this world. I can do greater things. You know, the less we see that, especially as children, it kind of deflects you and just doesn't give you that inspiration and that encouragement that you need. So when we talk about representation and our role and how we act on it, we have to always remember that we are doing this for the long haul. We are doing this for people that we don't even know is actually watching us, right? So we have due diligence almost to not just ourselves, our teams, our communities, but the generations that are watching us. So anyhow, again, the power of representation, it inspires, it makes people feel like a collective and feel part of something. However, representation can also make worldwide shift beyond our own imagination. And again, like I said earlier, it can truly impact our business as well. Now, I think a really amazing, fun example, I'm doing the fun stuff first, y'all. A really fun example is the movie Black Panther. And I'm going to share this with you as I advance my slides here. Here's an image of the late Chadwick Boseman on The View. And this was during the premiere of the Black Panther. In a moment where he was asked by Whoopi Goldberg, what is the message to the world with Black Panther? And Chadwick went on to say something really, to me, profound and very eye-opening. And what he said was that it works to have a Black cast. It works that our stories can resonate, not just with this country, but throughout the world. And that had so much layers to that quote, because what people, especially production, once thought was impossible surpassed their own expectations. You know, for so long, a culture waited to have this degree of representation. And when the chance was finally taken, it worked. Whether you are a Marvel fan or not, the movie has so much impact simply because it fell on uncharted territory that was long overdue. And, you know, communities want change. Communities want to feel embraced. And the more we start embracing them, the more we see positive reactions, especially when they're represented correctly, we see positive reaction to, those shifts. So this quote really meant a lot, and just really resonated with the idea of representation and how powerful it can be. So, like I said, when you choose to make change, you choose to go a different route. When someone recognizes that certain images in our life are missing, then we make a shift, and and us as people who see ourselves in images like this, we start to feel celebrated. And I want to share some really important facts about this movie, because this movie truly broke ground, not just with how it made people feel, but it broke major ground in the world of movies. Now, let me just go ahead here. So some impactful facts about this movie. Now, this was the first Marvel Studios production to feature a primarily African-American cast. It grossed a worldwide total of $1.348 billion. It was the highest grossing solo superhero film, sorry. It was the second highest grossing film of 2018. It was the highest grossing film by a Black director, the third highest grossing film of the MCU and superhero film overall. And it was the most tweeted about film of 2018, with more than 5 million tweets globally. This movie broke ground. This movie that, people thought would not work for many years had broke ground, because there were so many people just waiting to see themselves. And when people see that, then the movement starts. Sometimes it just really takes that chance, the risk. And it was celebrated. People just seen themselves in unfamiliar perspective and won. Kids were able to celebrate a hero who looked just like them. It built confidence and appreciation within a culture and throughout. So wow to the power of representation. A few things is that there's this evolution of new beginnings and opportunities when we step outside of the norm and start to embrace the things we're unfamiliar with. Difference does not mean bad. In fact, difference is powerful and liberating. It's how we create impact. And most importantly, it's how we change old and often incorrect narratives. And a few things about these facts that I've just talked about, we'll touch on in a little bit, but proper inclusion is great on one's personal development, but it's also beneficial to our businesses that we do. And I have mentioned that a couple times. So the question really is now, how do we begin to apply representation within our communities and the industries that we work within, right? There are plenty of examples that I gave here where those were importance of representation in the media or in sports. But what about events? What about communities that we serve in those events? Like, how do we start doing this, right? And that's always the challenging thing. Well, to me, it really starts with really basic, but it's just empathy. Humanizing the experiences of other people, knowing the pain, the injustices, the racism, the lack of inclusion, the lack of safe space for people. These things hinder the ability for people to excel at what they do. And I want to share a quote that kind of narrates what I'm trying to say to you. Now, this quote was by Elliot Ferguson, and he's the president and CEO of Destinations DC. And it was from an interview that he gave, I believe it was in North Star Meetings Group. And in this article, he said, I've been in this industry since the 80s. And he's referring to the events industry or hospitality, I believe. And he said, I've never had a sense that when I came to work and had a suit on, that I could share some of the experiences that I've had in terms of racism, discrimination, or profiling, because it would be frowned upon, or maybe I'd even lose my job. end quote. So, Ferguson's experiences, despite being an identifying Black male American, echoes very similar to my own. I'm a Canadian Black woman, and the experiences are so similar. I couldn't speak to anyone on my team about the struggles, partly because a lot of people wouldn't understand, or they were sometimes even part of the problem, right? And sometimes going to HR, it would probably make me look delusional, like, some things don't look like racism, but it is, and there was no one that you could report to necessarily who even looks like me. And sometimes in those cases, people are trying to protect their job, so they don't want to get into the politics of that. So these are some of the challenges that a lot of Black individuals, even BIPOC individuals, experience for most of our adult working lives. And it's just a long lineage of struggles that we encounter, and we've come to a point where we need to start enforcing these changes, so that we're creating these safe, inclusive safe spaces, and also ones that foster that representation. So, a recent stat showed that 45% of Black women say that they most experience racism in their lives, especially at work. This is due to a lot of reasons, including lack of training, education in the workplace on diversity and inclusion. Therefore, to understand like any cultural insensitivities and microaggressions, it's often impossible. So again, where do we start when we talk about this? But before I get into that, I want to explain some of the common issues that professionals like myself have faced in the workplace. And a lot of it is, it stems from lack of diversity, lack of inclusion, equity, the list goes on. So some of the common issues is that, a lot of us are being passed over for promotions in favor of less experienced coworkers. Often, a lot of people have found out that they earn less than, their white counterparts who works in a lower role than them. Many have questioned that maybe they had missed out on opportunities, such as jobs often being overlooked for requests for proposals, even though they've had years of experiences. A lot of vendors have been overlooked for the popular vendors, which are often, white professionals in the industry. Many have said they aren't paid to speak as speakers, or they're asked to lower their fees. And this is something that I discussed earlier on in my presentation. There are leaders who have often overlooked BIPOC individuals to be mentored or form healthy working relationships with. Many organizations have often relied on diverse companies only to work on multicultural projects. And as organizations, we have to ask ourselves, what message are we telling our clients when we do these things, right? So a lot of the problems that I've, mentioned are just kind of surface level issues. And I really want to paint that picture just to let you understand, even beyond the idea of representation, what a lot of Black professionals are experiencing, so that it gives us that encouragement to say, you know what, we need to work a little bit harder, and be inclusive and be more diverse, and also, most importantly, be more equitable in the work that we're doing. So, of course, there comes a time where each of us can collectively say, okay, enough is enough, and it's actually time to do something. So again, how do we begin to start, changing this narrative as individuals, as leaders, as companies within our teams across the world? You may not set Marvel records, like the Black Panther, but I truly believe that, once we take that first step where we can, take a step in towards changing that narrative, we can then create new ones and actual powerful ones. So let's discuss a couple steps towards change. I believe I have like 10 minutes here. And let's see how we can create those changes. So steps towards change. The first one I'm going to suggest is to audit. And collectively, this is where your team should begin reviewing the policies, reviewing your procedures of your company, the events, and how you build your community of your company. If you remember back in 2020, there was a majority of companies who were putting up Black squares and making comments to supporting the Black community. And many of them went dead silent after that. There was nothing. I don't even know if they did audits on themselves. Some companies didn't even address anything at all, right? They were just silent throughout the whole thing, which is equally as bad. So you need to start making an honest review of your company and think about what areas do we need to change. What is it, your marketing? Is it your training? What about interns, student mentors? What are the demographics in your company? Who are you recruiting into your company and from where? So investing in more training, offering more mentorship, developing strategies around this to, execute, better results in our companies are some of the steps we can start towards making change, especially when it comes to better representation. Reach out to trusted companies that can help you effectively track your metrics, especially in the area of diversity. And you know what? This is eventually good for business, no matter which way you look at it. You are always going to win. And I'll share a little bit more around that in a moment. When building your team and developing recruiting practices that intentionally speak to talent in the workplace, you win, period. So my next point to all of you is to diversify your suppliers list. And you know what? This could be really fun because you just might find some new areas that you just never even seen before. Remember in the beginning of my presentation, I spoke about, the lack of Black speakers. Well, to what the eye can see, I don't know if much is changing, but go out of your way to do the homework to source suppliers, to diversify your business and your events. Last year at Black and Events, we produced a list of 100 highlights of Black professionals in the industry, because it's often said that the industry does not know where to source suppliers. So we said, you know what, let's put it out there. Let's collect a list and, show that we are out here. And this has become now a yearly thing that we do to just really highlight Black professionals in our network. And it gives others an ability to just network and connect and build these new relationships. I also produced an article with Event MB where there's a source of diverse suppliers from food, venues, planners, designers, and literally from all parts of the world. So, these are sources where we can pull from. And also I want to encourage you to do a little bit of the work on your own. LinkedIn is a powerful tool where we can just connect with people, ask your peers. Black and Events, we're building out where we can actually connect companies to Black professionals so that, there's just a little bit more diversity. And we want to expand that to be a little bit more inclusive beyond Black professionals, because we do still understand that there's struggles in other areas when it comes to diversity. So, in sort of, be open and do the homework, and also know that there are resources out there to support you. So yeah, my next point here for you is to build partnerships. And this is a strong one. I think an important one. It really shows that sense of commitment and it holds you accountable. If you're a larger, more established company, collaborate with smaller, diverse agencies and vendors. And if you're not sure where to begin, consult with a trusted network like ourselves, like at Black and Events, where I'm focused on where you can build and close some of those gaps. Support companies and networks that are ethnically diverse by partnering or sponsoring. Many small businesses struggle to get loans or even grants or financial support to expand despite their experience, despite their skills. In 2015, there was McKinsey published a report on why diversity matters, and it found that racially diverse companies tend to outperform industry norms by about 35%. So diverse workspaces are higher in performance, innovation, creativity, sales, and stock returns. And don't forget the Black Panther movie. If you ever try to question representation and how effective it can actually be. Now, my last point to this is commitment. And, it could probably be the first, but I wanted to leave it as the last because it's important and I wanted to resonate that with what comes with commitment is allyship and truly being an ally and understanding that this is literally a lifelong journey, closing that gap and making up your mind that you, your team, maybe even your friends need to start making some sort of conscious change. And again, I always stress this, it's a lifelong journey. It stems beyond work. It goes into our personal lives. I've met people who have told me that once they started to commit to this work, they lost friends and even family members. And that says a lot, right? In this process, you'll have to do a lot of listening, a lot of learning. You may need to have tough conversations with your leaders, with HR. But once you choose those conversations, you start to observe the internal business and begin paying attention to the work that you need to do. Again, you may begin to realize this goes beyond business, but in my books, it's always humanity first, and doing the right thing at all times. Another thing is learning to speak when you can't speak. Speak up if you have the privilege to do that. When you spot microaggressions, biases, learn to hold people accountable. Speak with your network, ask for help if you aren't sure, and be transparent. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say, Keneisha, I just want to be transparent and say, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. And I always say, it's okay. A lot of us are still learning, and it's okay as long as you're making that conscious commitment. And it always confuses people, how do I even start this? And it's just making that decision. You commit to it, you'll get there, right? So, a little recap is listen and learn. This is not a trend, it's a journey. Invest in training, invest in mentorship, develop the strategies, be an ally, bring that conversation up, support companies, support networks that are ethnically diverse, and by partnering or sponsoring to just leverage and close those gaps and build more representation in your events, in your communities, right? And know that the future is right now. The more we start is the better for all of us. And you have to understand and know that you have the power to do so. And I really, really believe that with this work, all of us can definitely, do that. Sorry. So that means my time is up here. So, if you want to reach out to me and you want to connect with me, I'm going to put my contact information right there. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. You can visit my website at keneisha.co and connect with me. Let's talk, let's work, let's put in the work and make some changes out there. Thank you again, CMX, for having me. I'm always thrilled to be here, and hopefully we can connect soon. Happy holidays, and have a wonderful new year. Thank you guys so much.